One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. What if I told you that your most taboo thoughts, your quiet cravings, and your hidden desires are not enemies to be erased, but gateways to deeper self-understanding? What if the parts of your sexuality that you fear the most are not signs of your brokenness, but keys to your wholeness? Have you ever felt ashamed of wanting or afraid of what you're drawn to? Have you ever wondered why you sabotage intimacy or feel disconnected from your own body, even when you long for connection? If so, I invite you to comment below, not with judgment, but with honesty, because this conversation is not about shame, it is about shadow, and until we face the shadow, it owns us. In every soul there is a corner locked away, a place filled with instinctual drives, fantasies we dare not speak aloud, compulsions we don't understand, fears that keep us silent. This place is the sexual shadow. Now let me be clear, the shadow is not evil, it is not some demonic force, it is simply everything in us that has been rejected, repressed, denied. And in the realm of sexuality, the shadow is particularly deep because we have all inherited centuries of moral suppression, religious taboo, cultural control, and personal trauma. We have been taught to divide ourselves into good and bad, pure and impure, worthy and unworthy. And this division creates a wound between body and spirit, a wound between pleasure and holiness, a wound between desire and dignity. And so yet many of us grow up split. We perform virtue but carry secrets. We chase connection but fear vulnerability. We crave intensity but hide our impulses. We pretend to be whole while hiding from our hunger. But here's the truth. The shadow cannot be healed by more suppression. The shadow can only be healed by being seen. Your sexual shadow holds your unmet needs. It carries not just lust, but loneliness, not just kink, but trauma, not just fantasy, but forgotten pain. And until you bring this into consciousness, it will act out through addiction, avoidance, manipulation, or numbness. You may find yourself in repeated patterns, craving people who don't see you, sabotaging intimacy the moment it feels safe, chasing thrill while fearing tenderness. You may mistake love for intensity, control for closeness, performance for passion. And each time, you wonder what's wrong with me. But there is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You are simply unconscious of the shadow's power. You see, sexuality is not just physical. It is archetypal. It is symbolic. It is the way energy moves through your being. When blocked, it becomes obsession or repression, but when integrated, it becomes creation, connection, vitality. Every time you suppress your sexual energy, it doesn't disappear. It sinks into the unconscious and becomes distorted. It might show up as rage, as guilt, as chronic fatigue, as apathy, or as a compulsive need for validation. And none of this will stop until you ask, what have I locked away inside me and why? Perhaps you were told that desire is dirty, that pleasure is dangerous, that your gender carries shame, that your attraction is deviant, that to be spiritual you must be celibate. But I tell you, the spiritual path is not the denial of desire, it is the transformation of it, the integration of it, the making sacred of it. Sexuality is a mirror. It shows you who you are, your fears, your longing, your wounds, your needs. It reveals your power and your pain. It is the most intimate theater of the psyche. And those who dare to explore their sexual shadow do not become perverse, they become whole. So how do you begin? First, you stop judging your fantasies. Fantasies are symbolic. They are not literal scripts. They are the unconscious, speaking in metaphor. A desire for dominance may mask a fear of vulnerability. A desire for submission may reflect a longing to surrender control and feel safe. A recurring theme of rejection might reveal the original abandonment you never healed from. When you explore these symbols, not act them out compulsively, but reflect on them, you begin to recover the language of your soul. Second, you reclaim your body. Many people live entirely in their minds. The body becomes an afterthought, or worse, a battleground. You dissociate, you perform, you endure. But true integration begins when you return to sensation, when you slow down, breathe, feel. Not just pleasure, but presence. The ability to be in your skin without shame, to notice where you clench, where you numb, where you hide. And in that awareness, something shifts. The body softens, the spirit listens, and your sexuality becomes less about control and more about communion. Third, you reframe your past. Many of our sexual shadows come from wounding experiences where we felt violated, shamed, exposed, confused. And these moments get stored not just in memory, but in muscle, in instinct, in identity. You might think you're over it. But until you meet the wounded part with compassion, not dismissal, not bypassing, but true acknowledgement, you will keep playing out the wound in unconscious ways. Healing the sexual shadow means revisiting the places we split off from ourselves and offering presence where there was once pain. Finally, you integrate the archetype of the lover. And this is not about seduction or romantic idealization. The lover is an energy that sees beauty, seeks union, embraces life. And this archetype must live within you, not just through others. You must become the one who woos your own soul, who sees yourself with eyes of reverence, who allows your sensuality to be sacred, who no longer needs to be chosen because you have already chosen yourself. This is not an easy path. To explore your sexual shadow is to descend into the underworld of your own psyche. It is to meet your shame, your fear, your unmet hunger, but it is also to recover your power, your creativity, your vitality. It is to reclaim what was once stolen, your right to feel, to want, to be whole. Many will not understand this work. They will say you are obsessed with the flesh, with desire, but I tell you, you are not obsessed, you are remembering, you are healing, you are daring to live as an embodied soul, not just a disembodied idea. And in a world that profits from your disconnection, this is revolutionary. So ask yourself, what am I still afraid to feel? What part of my desire do I demonize? What secret do I still carry in silence? And what would it mean to bring it to light, not to be exposed, but to be free? Freedom is not found in control. It is found in conscious choice. Freedom is not found in repression. It is found in integration. You can be spiritual and sensual, sacred and sexual, whole and healing. Because your sexual energy is not separate from your soul, it is the pulse of life itself. And when you own it, not perform it, not hide it, not deny it, but truly own it, you become sovereign. No longer a slave to compulsion, no longer dependent on approval, no longer exiled from your own body, but home, fully, finally, home. To face the sexual shadow is not merely an act of personal healing, it is a profound service to the collective. For as long as sexuality remains hidden in the dungeon of shame and taboo, society will continue to act it out in distorted, unconscious ways. You see it in the obsession with superficial beauty, in the violence committed in the name of repression, in the commodification of desire and the fear of genuine intimacy. You see it in the hypocrisy of public virtue and private vice. The hunger is everywhere, but rarely is it understood, let alone transformed. So when you begin to do this work, not just explore your surface-level impulses, but truly listen to what your soul is crying out for beneath your sexuality, you become a vessel of truth in a world that desperately needs integration. You become the one who no longer flinches at depth, the one who no longer turns away from desire, but enters into it with reverence, with awareness. The one who recognizes that the sexual impulse at its core is not about conquest, not about escape, not about control, but about merging, about remembering that we were never separate to begin with. This is not a merging of bodies alone, it is a merging of opposites within the psyche, the masculine and feminine, the assertive and the receptive, the instinctual and the divine. It is the inner union that gives rise to outer wholeness. In my work, I have called this the hieros gamos, the sacred marriage within. And unless this inner union takes place, we will forever project our unmet parts onto others. We will expect a partner to make us feel whole, desired, alive. We will chase intensity, mistaking it for love. We will confuse chemistry with compatibility and attraction with destiny. And in doing so, we avoid the real work of loving the disowned parts of ourselves. The shadow thrives on projection. What we cannot accept in ourselves, we will unconsciously assign to others. This is especially true in the realm of sex. If you are not conscious of your own hunger, you will demonize others for theirs. If you have not explored your own boundaries, you will invite others to cross them. If you have not honored your own body, you will let others dishonor it too. And this cycle will continue until you pause and ask, what part of me have I exiled? And why? Perhaps you were told that nice people don't have dark thoughts, that good people don't feel rage or lust or longing, that spiritual people transcend the body. But I ask you, how can you transcend what you've never first integrated? Spiritual bypassing is the new repression, and repression is simply a delay in evolution. True awakening begins when you stop trying to be good and start trying to be whole. Wholeness includes contradiction. It includes paradox. It includes the sacred and the shadow, not as enemies, but as lovers. Because the truth is, this your desire, when conscious, is holy. It is the compass of your soul. But when denied, it becomes dangerous not because it is bad, but because it is blind. Blind desire uses others. Conscious desire honors them. Blind desire seeks escape. Conscious desire seeks presence. Blind desire feeds ego. Conscious desire deepens soul. And so the journey into your sexual shadow is ultimately a journey into presence, into truth, into integrity. You begin to see that your pleasure is not a sin, it is a signpost, that your fantasy is not filth, it is a fragment of your unmet need, that your shame is not your identity, it is inherited, and it can be released. Let us go even deeper. What if the energy you call sexual is actually the most creative force you possess? What if this energy, when freed from shame and distortion, could become the fire behind your art, your voice, your vision? What if your eros, the life force within, could birth more than just physical pleasure? What if it could birth a new self? This is what the alchemists understood. That base instinct could become spiritual gold, that the densest material, the most primal force, could become the catalyst for the soul's ascent. But only if you face it, only if you feel it, only if you make the unconscious conscious. This is the great paradox, that in order to rise, you must descend. In order to heal, you must feel. In order to transcend, you must first integrate. You must make peace with the part of you that once made you uncomfortable. You must meet your desire not with denial, but with discernment. You must stop asking, "Is this bad?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me about myself?" This is what maturity looks like, not controlling your urges through fear, but understanding them through awareness. And as your awareness deepens, so does your freedom. You begin to recognize what is authentic and what is performative. You begin to move from compulsion to conscious choice. You begin to stop blaming others for what you have not yet loved in yourself. And in this space, intimacy is no longer performance. It is presence. You are no longer trying to impress. You are trying to connect. You are no longer trying to escape. You are trying to feel. You are no longer seeking validation. You are offering truth. And in offering that truth, you liberate others to do the same. So now I ask you, not as a theorist, but as a fellow traveler, what would it mean for you to reclaim your sexual energy, not as a secret to hide, but as a light to guide? What would it mean to honor your body as sacred, your desire as valid, your pleasure as divine? What would it mean to stop apologizing for being human? Because the journey back to yourself is not a straight line. It is a spiral. You will revisit old wounds with new eyes. You will descend into darkness and rise into light. You will be asked again and again to choose authenticity over approval, to choose intimacy over performance, to choose truth over safety. And each time you choose, you come closer to the self you were always meant to be. Not the sanitized self, not the perfected self, but the whole self. The self who has danced with darkness and chosen to love anyway. The self who no longer divides their being into sacred and shameful. The self who can stand naked not just in body, but in soul. That self is not weak. That self is not dirty. That self is not broken. That self is free. And freedom, my friend, is the birthright of every soul brave enough to meet their shadow. So go now not to fix yourself, but to find yourself. And when you do, you will no longer fear your desire. You will listen to it, learn from it, and let it lead you not into addiction or avoidance, but into deeper embodiment, into true intimacy, and ultimately into love. Because the truth is this: your sexual shadow is not the enemy of your soul. It is the part of your soul that's been waiting the longest to be loved. Love it now, and watch who you become